financial problems, elder law, criminal law, tax problems, business matters, divorce, personal injury, bankruptcy, your life, your reality. Life is complicated. There is the law and there is reality. Welcome to Law and Reality, sponsored by THAV GROSS. Now here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome to this segment of Law and Reality. Today's topic is student loans. They're going to garnish my paycheck. Help me. Brian Small, help me.
Good morning, Ken. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm going to apparently be talking a lot this segment and this show.
Not everything in the world is good. Good morning, Pat Semesco.
Good morning. This is the student loan. You go out to the greatest party of your life, and then you wake up with the biggest hangover you ever had.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. You know,
It's the hangover.
Well, I had that student loan a few times.
Oh, yeah.
In those
Yeah.
days.
And when you say, never again, never again, you can't, never again, it's student loan, though.
you know, I know we're going to get into a whole
to the
bunch
extent of remembering back to that era, I don't think I woke up saying never again.
when
Oh,
was
my
just-
God.
It was just part. It was just part of the DNA at the time.
every Sunday morning.
When it turned into a 3-day hangover, that's when you said that's enough.
Yep.
Third day,
Yep.
all right, I had enough.
I don't miss those days.
Yeah.
No,
Like
no.
the idea of like if I have 2 drinks and I'm feeling off, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And it's like if you think about that compared to what we did when we were younger, it's insane. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, you know, the before we even get into the statistics about this, I want to give a warning. A student loan warning. Start off with an easy one. If you are going to co-sign a student loan for your child under the belief that they are going to pay their student loan back, they're not going to do it. It's never going to happen, and you will be paying the bill yourself.
Not only that, or your Social Security will be getting garnished.
But Brian, they promised their mom with their ancient medieval literature degree, they'll be making tons of money.
I completely understand, and
How about their physical fitness degree?
sure.
Here's the question. Whose fault is the student loan dilemma that we have? And there is a right answer to this, and I have the right answer.
I have the right answer.
It's the colleges. It's the
Absolutely.
universities. It's free
Well,
money,
it's-
free money,
No,
free
you're
money.
you are
it's
you are
Congress.
You gotta
100%
go.
wrong.
It's Congress for allowing the
That's the
universities
answer.
the opportunity to do that.
That's the answer.
But it all ties together.
When the
It's all
government
the same
when the
point.
government allowed student loans to continue to be larger and larger and larger, what happened is that the universities said, "Ooh, we can charge more money for these students to go to school, so we can pay everybody so much more money." It is the credit card trap in reverse.
Right. But when you say who's to blame, there's a stewardship issue. Okay. Congress has a responsibility to the public
Ha!
and to the students, and so do the universities. The
Oh,
universities,
absolutely.
the universities are supposed to be looking out for those students that they attract.
Yeah.
Well,
and
when
they
they-
host them.
Maybe they
host them.
shouldn't sell underwater basket weaving degrees.
No, they host them. They
I mean-
absolutely. When you say who's to blame, I agree with you.
Yeah.
The universities get a tremendous amount of blame, but ultimately Congress does for making the loans available and for allowing them to be.
And then
non-dischargeable.
accepting that it's a societal norm that your child should go away to a 4-year university and play for 4 years, only working on their degree in the last 2, while it costs mom and dad now what, $30, $40, $50,000 a year to send your kid to college?
Yeah,
Maybe
but
more?
Then what it does it teaches the kids that being a plumber, being an electrician, being a line worker, being anything
Beneficial.
is horrible. Yeah, it's so now we don't have that workforce.
Yeah, the trades are gone.
25 people.
They're now learning that it is beneficial.
For
but-
every 25 people leaving the building trades, there's like 4 people coming into
But,
them.
but there are countries that have college education paid for. I'm sure they also still have plumbers and electricians.
Yeah, they also have extraordinarily high taxes.
Well, Israel's one where you get your college education paid for, and it's a their
Well, you
tax
get under-
their tax, and they also have health care. Their tax structure is more onerous than ours, but it's very similar to ours
Yeah.
in that there's multiple opportunities for entrepreneurs to pay less taxes.
Right.
They manipulate the tax obligations there in a very similar way that we do here.
But
well,
you-
now under your 2-year degree, it's free. Right? You can go to like Macomb Community College, that's free, I think. So why not everyone going there, right? Dave's shaking his head, yeah.
It sure makes sense. Go
Yeah.
there, and then if you want to get
Yeah.
if you want to get a supplemental degree after that,
Well, Mom,
Well,
my friends
here's
go.
the problem. The problem is that's all well and good,
yeah. But what do you do now?
but student loans just came due.
Yeah, in fact, let's throw out the numbers. You got 42.7 million borrowers are more than 1.6 trillion in student debt. The number in default is approximately 5.3 million, expected to increase to 10 million. This is from the Department of Education, so you got to figure that these numbers
Which they're trying to
are
eliminate.
probably conservative. Defaults is defined as more than 270 days. Starting on May 5th, they sent out letters saying that you're going to get, unless you get into a default resolution group, you're going to start getting garnished.
Yeah.
So here's the
Well,
biggest
don't
thing
they
is-
have to sue me to garnish you to me?
You would think so,
But you know what? They don't.
not when it's the federal government.
No, 15% is what they can take from your paycheck or
Is
your
that
Social
on-
Security.
It's 15% of Social Security. Is it 15% of your paycheck also? Or is it,
I believe it's anything.
I think it's more in your paycheck because
Well,
your
that's the
exemption
20,
amount.
if they sue you, they can get 25%. But the key is that they're coming after you hard, and you may not feel it today, but you're going to feel it soon.
It says the garnishment rule, the government can garnish up to 15% of your disposable income to repay defaulted loans. Social Security, I think they're maxed at the 15%.
Yep.
But so then they're like AP
Wait, who's
has-
Social Security? Because the kid ain't got Social Security. It's grandma's Social Security.
correct. That's the biggest. That's
What was my warning before we go to break? My warning was don't co-sign a student loan for your child.
Let's talk about Christine Farrow. She's 73. This is an article in AP.
How about when we come
yeah,
back
I
from the
think-
break?
yeah.
We'll take a break and then we'll talk about Christine Farrow.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV GROSS specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If your loved one is struggling with age-related issues, let our family help your family. Call Samasco Law now. We're family-owned and growing. Meet Joe Frizzard and Kelsey Samasco, our newest superstars. We'll handle your issues with care, compassion, and dedication. At Samasco Law, we'll leave no stone unturned until your family is protected for the long term. We'll walk together. That's what families do. Samasco Law. Protect what matters.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress.
Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirschner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
All right, so we're back. So Christine Farrow, she's 73 years old. She's got $250,000 of student loans going back to when she was in school. It goes back 40 years.
Maybe she should have paid them.
She was getting garnished before the hold that came from COVID. And when she went to ask the Department of Education for help, they said move to a different state. Find a lower cost of living because you still got to pay your loan back. So, and now we've got all these people that the parents and grandparents that guaranteed the student loans, they're on Social Security. That the government just goes, garnishes their Social Security check.
How much you think
the employee, the student who's working, they garnish your wages.
How much do you think the interest rates drop when they have the restrictions that you can't file bankruptcy on student loans?
So wait. That's a misnomer. You can file bankruptcy on student loans. So you have to start with the very basics. Up until the Biden administration, the dischargeability of student loans was controlled by something called the Brunner test. It was a series of there's a series of factors that you apply, and it's very, very difficult to discharge a student loan, but it isn't impossible. Under the Biden administration, they created a streamlined program with the Department of Justice and the Department of Education to discharge student loans. There are numerous factors, including have you been back...
Is it still in play?
It is and it isn't. It's certainly...
Well,
everything,
what is it? Or is it isn't?
You said the law is there but no one's enforcing it, or what?
No, they're actually still working it through the Department of Justice. It's just going slower again.
Can my kid file bankruptcy on their student loan?
Here's the thing, yes and no. Again, you can file Chapter 13 and control your student loan and pay back what you can afford.
Yeah, I wouldn't say yes and no. That's your best remedy.
Well, if right now we can do an assessment to determine whether or not you can discharge your student loan in a Chapter 7.
I don't want to get...
in order to discharge a student loan, there's a lot of factors, including have you been in repayment for at least 10 years? Okay? Have you made a good faith attempt at repaying? And there's a series of factors that you add up. And
you never answered my question. Does the interest rate go up when... Would the interest rates go up?
Well, let me answer your question. We already saw what happened with that. Student loans have been non-dischargeable for years. Private student loans would do teaser rates. Discover, you would see them all the time. They'd say, for the next 2 years you get this low interest rate, and then it would bump right up. And the federal student loan interest rate has never been low.
No, in fact, when I was in school,
just the fact that
it was
9%.
When that was 30 plus years ago.
It's a win-win for the lender.
Right.
Whether it's the federal government or whether it's the private lender, it doesn't get dischargeable.
Do the universities...
I want to jump back to what you did, because you jumped into dischargeability, and I want the show to focus. I want to cover that, but the bigger thing is, what is the remedy now for the student or the grandparent who's getting garnished on their loan? as I understand it, Chapter 13 is your savior. It's not a question of discharging. It's a question of how do you stop your paycheck from being garnished because you can't afford it.
100%
That's what I want to
correct.
know.
So you've got 3 sets of options when it comes to dealing with student loans. One of them is a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Chapter 13 bankruptcy will allow you to pay back what you can afford, which if you're
Tell me what the 3 options are first, and then tell me about each one of them.
Well, you have the option to rehabilitate your loan and then pay your payments.
So that's like getting into a loan modification or a default arrangement. Make a deal.
No, it's rehabilitate your loan. There's a program to rehabilitate your loan, and then you go back to normal monthly
file
payments.
Chapter 13, and what's the third one?
Income-based repayment programs.
Okay. All right,
That's for the student or the parent.
Which is the one? All of a sudden, we got 50 million people are going to start having their paychecks garnished. What is the fast remedy for them to stop their wages
Chapter
from being
13.
garnished?
It instantly will stop the garnishment.
Okay, so how does that work?
So
how does that help them? 'Cause
so
you can't make the loan go away.
No, but let's take the average person on Social Security, okay? That's about to get 15% of their Social Security garnished. So let's say you're bringing home $2,200 a month in Social Security. It's not a ton, but it's enough to keep the roof over your
You got to
head.
set up the facts, though. The person on Social Security is 65. They're
also going to have their wages
They
garnished.
guaranteed their grandkid or their kid. That's what you're talking about.
But there's 2
or
classes.
it's like this other woman who's got her own student loans.
Yeah, that's
No.
4 people. In
Now
the
you
United
got
States.
that's the other woman. That's the grandparent that guaranteed it. And there's all the students that are in their 30s and 40s that are working, earning wages. Their wages are getting garnished too.
Yes.
Either one.
But I'm
That's the
trying
biggest
I'm
group.
trying to make it simple here. Just take the person on Social Security.
You can't do that, though, because there's no one on Social Security.
There
it's
are
the wages.
tons of people that walk in my office that owe student loans that are in their 60s and 70s.
Okay, we'll
every
talk
single
about
day.
them, but then when you're done with them, I want to talk about the 30-year-old whose wages are getting garnished.
Fine, it's the same concept. If you have someone who's got a limited amount of income and they're going to take 15% or 25% of your income to pay the student loans, and you can only afford, after you pay your rent, your electric bill, your gas bill, and your car payment, $150 a month, I can take Chapter 13 and force the government to accept $150 a month on your student loan.
Well, what about the person who can't afford anything to pay on the student loan?
That's where the question becomes, do they qualify for Chapter 7 to discharge their student loans? It is a much more difficult process. Chapter 13 is the easier road.
This idea of discharging the student loan, though, gets into that complicated test that you're talking
Yes.
about, right? So what I'm saying is you've got 50 million people, they're earning income, but they don't have the disposable income to pay the student loan back. What I want to focus on is what is our THAV GROSS's normal remedy to solve that problem for them when we come back from the break.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirschner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
Time for announcements. I want to announce THAV GROSS has opened a new office downriver in the Horizon building on Eureka Road. So now we're in Flint, downriver, and also our home office in Bingham Farms. Remember, you can always come in for a free consultation. You can do it by Zoom conference, in the office, any way that works best for you. Just call 888-235-HELP or go to the website thavgross.com to sign up. Debt issues, tax issues, estate planning issues, business law issues, elder law issues with Pat or Kelsey, disability issues with Jeff Kirshner. Again, sign up at lawandreality.com or thavgross.com or just call 888-235-HELP. Also, if you go to the website, you'll see there's free reports. Resolving Tax Problems, The Real Solutions by Jeff Linden and myself. Bankruptcy, Is It Right for Me by Brian Small. How to Save Your Home from Foreclosure. Business Formations, Loans and Grants for Small Businesses in Detroit and Michigan. And The Retiree's Guide to Social Security by Pat Simasko. I want to thank our sponsors, THAV GROSS, Simasko Law, Kirshner Law. Now back to the show.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV GROSS specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
The doctors ask if Dad's affairs are in order. Did Dad ever talk to you about what we should do in a situation like this?
Not a word.
What should we do?
We should have called Simasko.
Don't wait. All it takes is a quick call to Simasko Law or go online and fill out a request. We can get your needs and wishes set in stone so your family doesn't have to play a guessing game when the chips are down. Protect what matters. For power of attorney, call Simasko Law today.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Okay, so we're back. So what I'm asking you is whether I'm 65 getting Social Security and all of a sudden they're garnishing my wages, or whether I'm 40 and I'm earning my wages and all of a sudden I find out that my employer has to take out, $500 a week from my paycheck. What do I do?
It doesn't really matter. Both parties, both groups, Chapter 13 is the solution if you don't qualify for some of the other
So those kids are
solutions.
probably going to be like 25, 26, 27.
No,
they're
how
right
about
out of college.
no, because they're not in default yet.
Why aren't
okay?
they in default?
Because they're in deferment, and then they defer their student loans for years, and then they're in an income-based repayment program.
They're going to move into default.
They
Well,
will
that's
move into default, and so
Shouldn't you do it as early as possible, because then they don't have
It
the
says
bigger
right here,
jobs and bigger wages?
42.7
10 million people are going to be in default.
You got enough appointments in your office to fit all those 10 million?
10 million, probably.
think about it.
Ken will be happy.
We'll hire
Ken will
another.
be
We
happy.
only have 300 million people in the country. 10 million is an enormous
That's a
number.
big
The key
number.
here is what can you do, whether you are 35, 25, or 75,
Call
to
THAV GROSS.
to control your student loan payment. And as I told you, there were three options, one of them being Chapter 13. Chapter 13 will take a look at what your income is and what your expenses are, and what do you have available left over to pay towards your student loans and all the rest of your unsecured debt.
If you tried to get into income-based repayment, will they stop garnishing your
Yes,
wages
they will.
immediately while you apply?
No, you have to, it depends on where you are in the program. So first you have to rehabilitate your loan, as I understand it, to be eligible for an income-based repayment program. So if you're in deferment, your loans are still fine. If you've been in deferment for the last 5 years, you need to try and look at the
But the
IVR.
interest rates
Well,
are
how
still
are
there, and
people
the
in
loan is
deferment?
going
Huh?
up.
How are people in deferment?
Well, because every student loan has a deferment program with it, that you can defer it for 6 months or a year.
But all these were on suspension from COVID.
Right.
You can then
What does
immediately step
suspension
out of
mean?
that and then go, well, they were just, there was a moratorium.
Yeah, but the interest rates are still accruing,
No,
right?
interest is still accruing, yes.
I mean, the
And-
debt's going up.
Actually, I think, didn't they suspend
So
interest
during-
for COVID?
During the Biden administration, all student loans, federal student loans, did not accrue interest for, I think it was 3.5 years.
Oh, that
almost.
was one of the things the banks were upset about because they were not.
But private student loans still accrued, and they're
no,
back to
that's-
interest has been accruing again. And the way it was is that they gave you an extra year if you were once the student loans came due, which is why they suddenly came due now for 10 million people, or for everybody. You know.
So, we've been talking about student loans on this show for a long enough period of time that I could have gone to college and to med school again. Or
You went
not
to med
again.
school?
No, I could have gone to college again. So we've had this discussion. What's different about it now is the government is going aggressively to garnish students and elderly people that have student loans out there. All the time that we've been talking about it, my takeaway of our discussion has always been the benefit of Chapter 13 is it immediately stops the garnishment,
correct.
and then all you're going to ultimately pay on the student loan is their proportionate share, similar to what the credit card company would get, which is typically pennies on the dollar. That doesn't discharge the debt, but that puts it on hold for the length of the Chapter 13,
Which could
is,
be up to 5 years.
okay, and then if during that 5-year period the law changes so that student loan forgiveness comes back into play, then you get the benefit of it. If at the end of the 5 years the law hasn't changed, there's no law that says you can't file another Chapter 13, right?
This is true. On top of it,
So
if
that's
you-
my
if-
master plan.
Great. But I'm going to tell you, on top of it, people should come in and see us to do an evaluation as to whether their student loans might be dischargeable in Chapter 7. It is easier to do now. It's still tough. But one way or the other, if you've got
Let's look at it.
if you've got student loans,
Well, for sure,
we
you're-
need to do the analysis
What I'm
to figure out
hearing-
whether or not you should be a Chapter
What I'm
13 or a
hearing,
Chapter 7.
it's an
For sure.
individualized
Individual
plan for
to-
an
The
individual.
solution, the problem is
individual.
individual to the individual.
Here, I
and the
need some-
solution is individual
Here-
to the
here's-
No,
individual.
if somebody comes in, you're also going to look and see, can I put them into a deferment program?
Right, or an
into-
income-based repayment program. I'm
but
going to do the
lion-
analysis.
But am I correct that the lion's share remedy in this situation
Chapter 13.
is Chapter 13?
Yeah.
So let's make sure, I want to spend, like our last segment, I want people to understand how the Chapter 13 process works and what's the goal. Because the thing that people are confused on is this. The student loans are non-dischargeable, so then they're thinking bankruptcy doesn't work.
That's what I
And that's
think.
not true. Besides Chapter 7 sometimes being dischargeable, which you're talking about, Chapter 13, it's not dischargeable, but it's still a successful solution. The student loan problem is a serious problem. Garnishments need to be stopped. We're going to continue on this topic as we go, but the quick solution and quick answer is there is a remedy. You need to take action. Have a great week. We'll be back next week with Law and Reality.